I'd like to thank John Clemens for acknowledging that crop load management is perhaps the most important activity that growers do, because it influences your bottom line more than almost any other orchard activity. What I have here is I'm going to be talking about 3 crop load management experiments. The first one is here in these McCowans. Unfortunately, the rows are very narrow, and maybe when we okay, okay. Unfortunately, the rows are so narrow. Maybe you can look at the trees as you walk down, because I think that, Jaime, the next stop is at the end of this row? Yes. Okay, so I'll ask you to just go through here. There's this row and that row are treated. Now, I've been asked, or I've done in the last 2-3 years, experiments with a seed to thin apples, the 15 to 18 millimeter fruit size. And in all of those experiments, I treated trees that had not been treated before, and the results were rather modest, I would say, to be, and I wasn't terribly excited about the results. Now, as you know, we encourage you to start thinning at bloom or petal fall and continue on until you get to the crop load down where you want. And so treating trees that had not been previously received thinners did not make a whole lot of sense to me. So that's what this experiment was. I wanted to put on, there were actually 5 treatments here. There was one untreated control, one a what I would consider to be a grower control. At least the grower would be me. That was what I would treat these trees with if I were going to thin them. And then there was an early thinning, which was to get things started, and that treatment was 12 parts per million NAA plus carbaryl, and that was about the 5 millimeter stage. And then I had a treatment that got that with a seed plus a thinner, and then the last one was just a seed by itself, had no thinner before that. And so if you look, you can see that the fruit set on untreated controls was rather good. The fruit set is really too heavy. The grower control thinning control that I chose here over-thinned. The early thinning with 12 parts per million NAA and carbaryl was good. It got the crop load down to 7.1 fruit per centimeter limb circumference, which is a little bit higher than I'd like to see. But I over-thinned when I put on Maxell at 100 parts per million. Now, when I applied a seed plus that early thinner, it didn't do anything, and a seed by itself thinned just a little bit. So the results from this year's experiment were that the effects of previous thinners were not additive, and so you don't have to worry about that. But I do encourage everyone to start thinning early, and then if you need a seed, that's fine. And what it says here is you can get a little bit of thinning from a seed. So that was my first experiment. My second experiment was with Metamitron or Brevis, and that's something that you'll probably see perhaps in the next year or two. I know the paperwork for registration of this compound went in last December, so we'll have to see when it is actually approved. But it is a photosynthetic inhibitor that is presently being used in Europe and other places. And I wanted to do things a little bit different. This block is up on the hill as a block of galas that do not thin very easily. In fact, they thin very difficult. And so I try to be reasonably aggressive with these. But what happened this year, as we had in many places on the farm, we did not have as good fruit set in many places, and the galas was, that block was one that did not set well. I used the same grower control up there that I did down here, since I thought they probably would need about the same degree of aggressiveness. You can see, you can read it here. And then I had metametrone at a pint and a half per acre. That's the rate that they the rate they suggest is between 1 and 2 pints per acre, and they suggest starting when the fruit size they get about 5 millimeters. You can put it on a second time if you think you need it, but in this case it did a really good job. Now I will add that in all of these cases, the application of these thinners went on when NOAA suggested you apply the standard rate. So there was nothing abnormal about being too cold or too hot or some other thing that where you have a huge carbon deficit. And so in this case, metametrone, they also asked me to do it a little bit later on in the seed timing. And that's when the fruit size is 15 to 18 millimeters. And when I put metametrone on at that time, it did nothing. It can't thin then, but certainly it didn't do it this year. And then a seed did not thin it well. So the bottom line is they did thin, but the best treatment was the metametrone at a pint and a half, which is about the middle rate, and that did that did over thin. So anyway, we still got a little bit of work with that, but it was a tough year on that block, the thin. Okay, my last experiment that I'm going to talk about, we'll switch crops and talk about peaches. And this is a thinning with an experiment with a seed on Rising Star. Now this is a block of trees that it was the one that was available on the farm where I could do a replicated experiment. So I selected that one. And what I did, or Sean put on for me, a seed at 300 and 600 parts per million, which is the rate that the company recommends for thinning. Now there are other possibilities, early and late, and lower rates and higher rates and so on. But anyway, that's what we chose to do, which is on the suggested list. And we did hand thinning and measure and counted the time that required to do a tree, and then we counted all the fruit on that tree. And the bottom line is no significant difference of anything. Now, when you do this kind of stuff, you have to expect that. And I'd rather us fail than you, because it's more expensive for you to fail than it is for us. But anyway, we are going to harvest these fruit probably in about a week, and we will harvest the fruit, and we'll count the number of fruit on a tree, and weigh them to see if in fact there was any effect. Now, I was surprised and a little bit disappointed, I guess. After we put the spray on, we looked for something that you might expect. I've used a seed before for over 10 years, and the thing I've seen on apples is you have leaf yellowing and oftentimes leaf abscission. I saw nothing. You come back about 7 to 10 days later, I could see the leaves were not growing particularly well, and the fruit started to slow down growth. So we'll see what happens, and we'll write this up at the end of the season. But for right now, it wasn't exciting. That's it, Jaime.
Thank you.
Okay.